Hello, I'm Nigel Griffiths. I work in Advanced Technology Support in IBM Europe. In this video, we'll be looking at PowerVC 131 Standard Edition and looking at the new features in particular. We're not covering the Cloud Manager parts, there's a different movie for that. I'm going to assume that you've already been using PowerVC 1.3 and we're going to look at the differences. If you haven't seen a previous release, either tried it or seen videos about it, then go and look at YouTube. There's one that I recorded for the Power Systems virtual group in early January, roughly 90 minutes long, and that covers all the details and groundwork that you need here. This release was announced in April and came out 17th of June. That's the day I'm actually doing this recording. We have two editions now. We have the standard edition that we've been have out for 2 or 3, maybe 4 years now, and we have a new one called the Cloud PowerVC Manager Edition. We're going to concentrate on the standard edition in this movie. There's already a red book out. It's already pretty good. It's a draft at the moment. They're planning to release the full thing in August. Now you can go and look at the IBM announcements if you can actually find them, but they're quite dry and difficult to read. So here's my recut version. Number 1, where we have for AIX, it's an AIX feature, the Active Memory Expansion, AME. And this means that when we deploy a virtual machine, it will pick up the right active memory expansion factor. Next, the DRO, the Dynamic Resource Optimizer, that can be scheduled so we can switch it on so we can decide when it actually does the optimizing. When we remove a virtual machine, some people want to keep the virtual disks just in case the users change their mind, so we can do that now. Number 4, we have the database. It was DB2, but that's actually been moved to MariaDB. Then we have various Nova Link improvements. I'm going to dodge that one. I think it's a separate set of movies for Nova Link. We also have projects. I thought these projects and user roles were actually part of the Cloud Manager, but when I looked into it, nope, actually it's available in the standard edition. This means we can create different users and put them into different projects, and that separates out the virtual machines, the virtual disks, and the deployable images into these separate projects. The underlying hosts, the machines, and the underlying storage providers are common for one PowerVC. The next one I got in red in here because that was postponed. It was actually announced, then we had to announce that it's been postponed as well. The Hitachi storage provider was going to be added. Unfortunately, the rumor has it that when Hitachi came to actually implementing that with the IBMers said, no, this is enterprise class in here. We're going to do a proper full-blown OpenStack driver for it. And the Hitachi guy didn't realize how much work that involves. Number 8 then is this Cloud Manager being merged into PowerVC, and we get the Cloud Manager Edition of PowerVC. I'm not going to cover this in any more detail in this video, just a little teaser to get you excited to go and look at the next movie. Let's look at some of the details. We have the Active Memory Expansion, AX only feature. This is compresses memory for efficient use, and it gives you actually quite a big performance boost in a lot of cases. Now you switch this on at the HMC, and then you set this thing called the expansion factor. If the expansion factor is just 1, then if you like, AME is on but not actually active, then you can dynamically change that if you want to later on. If you give it an expansion factor of 2.5, then 4 gigabytes of memory is 2.5 times that, so that's 10 gigabytes of memory what it actually looks like when you're operating the machine. How do we set this in PowerVC? So I've logged into the PowerVC. Quick look in here, about 131. Okay. I looked in this user called PowerVC that I created and made into the right Red Hat user group, and you can see this is the project. The default project is this IBM default in here. Apparently it's always been here, we just haven't showed this to you on the GUI before. So here's my regular things in here. If we go to configuration and we look at compute templates, these are the sizes of virtual machines used when we deploy them. So we'll click in here. I'll just select one. This is one I've created, medium. And if we go to edit, this has already had advanced mode switch in here, so there's extra numbers in here. And if we scroll down here on the memory side, we have active memory expansion. So we click on here and we'll put in whatever our favorite number is for AME. If I save that and then use that template to create a new virtual machine, then if it's AIX, because this won't work with IBM I or Linux, it's an AIX feature, so they'll just be set up when it actually creates the LPAR on the HMC, and it's just set in there and will be picked up with AIX once it starts up. So down below in here we can see this is the virtual machine remote restart or simplified remote restart feature. This allows us, if we click it for this template, so any subsequent virtual machines we deploy using this template will have this setting on. This means that if the machine that it's on crashes and goes down, then we can actually take the LPAR that's on that dead machine and move it to a static live partition mobility type thing onto another machine and restart it somewhere else. Also over here, don't forget, with the recent versions of PowerVC, we have the shared processor pools. We're using the default pool in here. Some people use this for controlling your relational database licenses, for example. But this means we would create a template, perhaps PowerVM DB2 or PowerVM Oracle, for example, and then when we deploy something, it will go straight into the right shared processor pool. Now, I better clarify something here with the remote restart. The basic idea is, it came out last year for Power 8 machines. If a machine dies, then either on the command line on your HMC or using PowerVC, we can resurrect a virtual machine on that dead machine. It's a little bit like doing static LPM, but static LPM actually requires the machine to be up to actually do that. Here we have a machine that's died, so it's going to move that dead virtual machine to a new one and reactivate it. This is a nice way of recovering from a machine failure if you haven't got HACMP, or the Power HA as it's now called. But there was a slight wrinkle. The dead machine must be a zombie, and by what we mean is the machine may be down, but the service processor, the flexible service processor, must be alive because it's talked to by the HMC as it does this operation. Now, in the new release, this came out in HMC 850. And this came out just a month or so ago. With the latest versions of VO Server and the firmware, they've been out for a little while, there's much better function, and it was by popular demand that now we have, with the HMC command line, we have an option with no connection, and then it will go ahead even if the service processor is not alive. Now, unfortunately, with the HMC 850, that's not supported with PowerVC yet. I expect that to be put in with an update to PowerVC, hopefully in the short term. There's another thing in here that the remote restarts, we can actually do 32 of these at a time. So if we have massive machines, then we could actually do these simplified remote restarts, a lot of them at the same time, and recover 200 or 300 LPARs in a fairly short amount of time. Again, a little reminder before we look at the new things. We got the Dynamic Resource Optimizer. Came out last year, 2015. This allows PowerVC to use live partition mobility to load balance the machines in one of your host groups. LPM takes some effort, doesn't it, to move the memory and the LPAR between the machines. A much quicker way of doing it is if you've got a large machine that has the Enterprise Mobile CPU cores, where you buy so many cores and you can decide which machines you license for those cores that you now own. It can actually move the licensing of the cores around, so it may find a machine that's busy, and it can sort of borrow some licenses of an unbusy machine and just activate more CPUs locally to get you around a performance issue. So back to our home screen, we're going to go in here for hosts. I've only got a couple of machines at the moment. I should add a load more, but they're all Power 8s. But if we go to hosts group, here we have my Power 8 machines, all three, and I'll just click on that. Based on the type of CPU, may not suit a lot of people, but here they are at the moment. If you add 400 or 500 Power 8 machines, then you want subgroups. Could be very useful for projects, but that's another subject. So in here it says DRO, the Dynamic Resource Optimizer, is not on. So let's edit this resource group, and in here we're gone for CPU load balancing. The least busy machine is where the things get placed, and we have configure DRO. So switch this on, and we get a whole bunch more options in here. So there's always enabled or specific times. We're going in here. I've got active in here, so it'll actually go ahead. Advise means it will just give you messages in your message queue up in here saying, we think this machine is over busy and we'd like to move this LPAR over there, and then you can decide whether you want to do it or not. At the moment here, this is going to migrate machines. Here's the thing for the enterprise pools and the thresholds of how long it has to run something. I don't know whether I went down one, I must have clicked on it. how long it's going to run with a performance over a threshold before it actually commits to do it. You don't want a sub-second peak to 100% and back to start migrating things around your computer room. So here's the new feature in here. Now we've got ability to add time frames. Not quite sure which way people actually want to do this, whether they're going to add time frames for times you want things to go migrating around, or whether you want times when you don't want something migrated around. You may want to avoid a busy time, or maybe in the busy time that's the time you actually want to do the migration. But anyway, if we click on here, we can say what day of the week it is going to be. So let's say Friday, and what time. So AM, crumbs, no, let's try sometime 9 AM. End time is Friday, and in here 8 PM. So this is the time we want it to actually go off and do that. I'm actually doing the Friday, that's what this line in here means, and I could set up the other periods for the other days. So in fact, I could have done all the days of the week at the same time. Maybe treat Saturdays and Sundays differently. But that allows you to control when things are actually going to be moving around your computer room or not. One thing I was thinking of, maybe if you've got a particular batch run that takes all your machines to 100%, maybe you'd want to switch off DRO, because you don't want to try and move things around, because you know you're going to go over your threshold, so you can switch off DRO during those times and just let it run the rest of the time. Okay, we can do a save, and that's now activated, and it will start moving things around. Now I've got a chart here of somebody has done this and had some particular interesting features that it highlights in the graph. Here's an example of a more complicated setup where we got periods of the works that we're going to allow DRO to kick in and move things around the computer room, and any time during the weekend we're okay with that. But this is a particular graph that I liked. I forget where I got this from, to be honest. So if it was you, well done. But here we got some workload building up. This is 3 AM in here, 7, 11 and 3 PM in here. So things are building up in here. We can see that it's gone over the 70% threshold in here, and it goes on for some time. That's the waiting a period before it kicks in and decides that this is not just a transitory peak and it needs to do something about it. So you can see here it dips down drastically. This is, we've moved the LPAR to somewhere else, so this machine now has less work to do, and down it goes, and it carries on running for a while. Then some workload again peaks up, and then we move that off the machine, and then it ripples up. You can see there's a little peak in here over the top, but comes back quick enough so we don't act it. Here we're bumping along the 70%, and again something goes over, makes us go busy, and we move it out, and again move it out, and then there's a big drop in here for this particular workload has been moved off the machine. So we can see things. We'll see the other machines, of course, they'll be down here somewhere and bumping up every time they get an LPAR moved to the other machine. The opposite sort of effect, getting busier and busy. And this is the load balancing really in action. It would be great fun to have a series of graphs, and we could watch things moving around the computer room, as eventually we should get all the machines being sort of roughly equally used during these big peak periods. But workloads will be coming and going, and of course if it settles down and it's all nice and even across your computer room, and then one workload has a very busy period, then that could upset things, and things will start moving around the computer room again later on. Right, number 3 is this storage lifestyle. A bit of a grand name for what's going on in here. On removing a virtual machine, the default was just to remove the virtual disk. That was it. But now we can choose which disks or all the disks we actually want to destroy when we remove a virtual machine. We want to remove the virtual machine to free up the CPU and memory that it's going to use, but the disks is relatively inexpensive and we could keep them around for a while. We might find some users tell us that they finished with a virtual machine, and the day after they say, oh no, actually can we have it back for a bit, and if the disk's gone, it's gone. So we could keep them around for a while. Perhaps you'd want to keep them around for archiving at the end of the month. So you've got a copy on a tape or something, and then you destroy them later that week or something. So let's go and have a look at that. So back up to the home. This time we're going to go into the virtual machines. and you've got a couple in here as little examples as I'm using projects at the moment. Here's one in here. We'll just select it. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's come back out. We'll just select it, and then we'll do the delete operation. And now it's telling me, well, hang on, well, this has only got one disk, so there's 1 and 1. In here it could be sort of 1 boot disk and 28 data disks or something. Or we can be allowed to select it. We'll just select it. In this case it's the only one, but if we mark them up the ones we want, scroll down and hit delete, then it will save this disk and then delete the virtual machine for us. I won't do that in this case because I quite like this helper. Let's make a few comments about the actual installation. You have to install Red Hat 7.1 if you're on Power. Then you can use Little Endian or Big Endian. I didn't know that if you buy like a Big Endian and then you decide to use Little Endian, it's not transferable. Red Hat will ask you for your license again, so be careful with that one. I guess the Little Endian is the sort of long-term direction, so if you don't care, go for the Little Endian and it'll be yours for a long time. Or you can run it on an Intel machine. Be careful though, you need proper high-performance disks, and don't run it on a laptop or you'll be waiting quite a long time. Okay, then once you get your Red Hat on the network, set the date correctly, any other little fiddling about you like to do, then you're going to set up your repositories so you can update the software, but don't update Red Hat. This is the same with previous versions. When you install PowerVC, it will pull down the updated packages it wants. If you install and update everything, it will then probably have to delete a whole load of updates because it's been tested with specific releases of particular projects. Then with PowerVC, you'll either get a DVD or a large file. If it's a large file, unzip it and untar it. CD to the directory it creates, which just has a great big product name in it. Then you're going to do an install with a -S option. This -S for standard, -S for Power KVM, and now we have another one in here, -S for Cloud _PowerVM. This is highlighting the fact that the cloud features are only available with a PowerVM, not with Power KVM. Okay, so if you want to do a quick test to see if it's going to install okay, nice and cleanly, you can put a T in here. If not, you run it without the -T, and it takes roughly 30 minutes or so to do the install. If you've got nice fast disks, I'm using Fibre Channel on a V7000. It's quite nice and fast. Now the good news is that if you already have a PowerVC Standard Edition running, then you can upgrade. I'd upgrade first to PowerVC 1.3.1, and then I'll do the PowerVC upgrade to the Cloud Edition, with this Cloud Edition over here, and it will upgrade you. It'll add the extra packages you need for the cloud features, but it's a superset of what you have with the standard. Now I'm going to point out something in here. I don't usually talk about money, but I need to warn you that if you do that upgrade from standard to cloud, then you'll owe IBM some money. So these are the costs for the standard edition. This is price per core managed by PowerVC, and so it's all the machines that it's controlling. And then if you upgrade, then on the smaller machines it's double the price. On the larger machines it's just a bit more. Now, I confirmed these prices in April this year with the product manager. I'm just using dollars in here because most countries, you know roughly how much a dollar is worth in your local currency. Do check with your local IBM with his local price list that's current. Previous versions of PowerVC use DB2 as the underlying database. You're not really aware of it running there. It's all completely handled automatically. If you install the new PowerVC 1.3.1, then it will just start you off with MariaDB. If you're upgrading from an older release, it will silently in the background as you do the upgrade unload the DB2 database and put it into MariaDB, again all completely automatically behind the covers. You don't have to do it. And if I hadn't told you this, you may never have noticed. You can actually see in there my MariaDB is a plugin replacement for MySQL, so it appears as a MySQL process there running. You can see the logs though of MariaDB, and you can see that the RPMs loaded are MariaDB now, and you won't see any traces of DB2 being installed. Now, this video is getting a little bit on the long side. I'll postpone doing the projects in this one. We'll have a separate one looking at how you create and use your projects, and then we'll do the Cloud Manager in again further videos. If you've learnt something during this video, then please click the like button below. So it's nice to get some feedback. And finally, I'll leave you with my usual adverts. I'm Mr. Enron on Twitter. YouTube.com Nigel A.R. Griffiths is where you'll find all the other movies. Don't forget my Expert blog, where I make regular comments and some articles in there. And the virtual user groups I highly recommend, one for AIX, one for Power Systems.